Right then, good morning everybody, and welcome to this our second forum event for the June 2022 forum. Very good to have you here. It's great to see so many different people from so many different agencies attending today. My name is Steve Maccabee. I'm the multi-agency training manager for the Somerset Safeguarding Children Partnership Business Unit. And I'm going to be leading you through a whole series of presentations we've got today, really kind of going into depth about actually what is on offer to support children and young people's mental health across Somerset today. So I would just like to introduce Andrew Kooth, who is the Deputy Director for Commissioning from Somerset CCG, the Clinical Commissioning Group, who is just going to provide us with a welcome and an introduction at this morning's session. So Andrew, can I hand over to you for just a moment, please?
Thank you. Yes, it's a real privilege to be invited to open this session today. I mean, the title of today is Mental Health, essentially now and where we are now, and that implies we need to understand where we've been, and hopefully it'll give us some inspiration and confidence for where we're going in the future. So if we think back at the last 5 years, about 2017 was a particularly dark year, as it were, for children and young people's mental health in Somerset. 3 young people took their own lives, which clearly was tragic in every instance, and every family that impacted and friends was devastating for them, and that really sent shockwaves through the system in terms of mental health, and there was a real call to action. So in 2018, I think it was, the system came together to look at what was happening, why was this happening. There was various views. One of the prevailing views was tier 3, as it were, CAMHS, as it was called in those days. That tier, the thresholds to get into there was too high, and there was a paucity and not enough provision in what was then called tier 2. For people who are not familiar with those levels or tiers, there's the universal level at 1 for every child, early interventions at tier 2 for primary school, not primary, in schools, on secondary schools, or families and communities. Tier 3 for the specialist CAMHS, and then inpatients at tier 4. And there was a real feeling that there wasn't enough early intervention type support in Somerset. So there was this call to action to look at what was happening and what was provided, because it felt like too many children were going to tier 3, and that was overwhelmed. When we started that work, what really became quite quickly apparent is actually there was a lot of provision at tier 2, as there is today still. There's a whole lot more today, but there was a lot of provision. Unfortunately, it was too often it was disparate. It was certain parts of the county or surrounding particular schools or particular communities or particular conditions, and it was disjointed, or it's piecemeal, or there was a lottery of what was provided where and by whom and who got in and who didn't. And that was the genesis of a number of different initiatives, one of which is the Big Tent that hopefully you'll hear about later, where people came together to work together, an alliance, as it were, of VCSE partners who are collaborating together to support each other to actually close some of those gaps of where people were. In addition to that, clearly there was further work then in CAMHS, an expansion of CAMHS, also blurring of some of the boundaries between where level 2 ends and level 3 begins, and the 2+ service has now been brought on. And since then, of course, we've had children and young people's IAP services developed, practitioners, a significant amount of work done in the schools. There's the mental health support teams in schools, and also better coordination of services, be that from statutory services, social care, health service, or VCSE, including people like Kooth, 2BU, SWEDA, Space in Cheddar, and a range of different services now. So I think we're in a much better position than we were 5 years ago, and there is a whole lot more provision out there to support, protect young people and enhance their mental health and develop that resilience and to enable them to thrive in the settings they are. We're not there yet. It's not perfect. We've got about 60% coverage in terms of the mental health support teams in school, which is a national leader. We're exemplar across the nation, or the target is 50%, and we're leading the way, but we're still not there yet. We still need to do more. So I want today, and the presentations you'll hear later, to sort of give you reassurance that we're on the right trajectory. We have significantly moved on, particularly when we consider the response to COVID and how we supported children and young people in COVID, and recognise each and every one of those children were impacted differently, and the fact individual support packages around them. We haven't always got it right, but we have it in a much better and stronger position than we were, and hopefully you'll appreciate that as you hear what is going on now in terms of mental health, but also not to be complacent. And I think there's a whole lot more that we want to do as we go forward for the next 5 years. As I think it's more important you hear from other people and what other people are doing. So I'm going to just close my section there and throw it back open to the wider group so you can hear the presentations and get that reassurance of what we are doing now in Somerset, and in many ways leading the way in terms of children and young people's mental health and well-being in the county. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Andrew, and thank you for opening today's session for us. Really value that. So as Andrew said, there's lots going on, and actually we've been really keen to showcase that and actually upskill and inform people about what is available at this point in time. And as Andrew mentioned, you know, we're not saying everything's perfect, we're not saying that everything's solved, but there are some really good initiatives taking place. And another big part of these forum weeks that's really important is that actually we need your input into them. And if anybody joined our session yesterday, we talked about the Forum Legacy Group, very much about taking the learning from these events and the questions that are asked, the comments, the information, the knowledge that you have, and taking that forward into action for over the next 12 months to really kind of drive this agenda forward. So we will ask for your input throughout the today. So if you can grab a mobile phone, a tablet, an iPad, an internet enabled device, as they say on TV, and go to www.menti.com. We really want to hear from you, and my colleague will pop that link in the chat for you in just a minute here, and it'll ask you for the code that you can see on your screen. If you've got a QR code scanner on your phone, you can scan that now. That will take you straight into it, and that's going to be running throughout the whole session this morning, which is going to last for 2 hours. So as anybody's talking, if you've got something that pops into your head, and then please do capture that and pop that onto the Menti, and what we'll be able to do is extract that information afterwards, and that feedback will be absolutely crucial in sort of driving the agenda forward. So please do play an active part in this morning's presentation. And the question is very simply, is what would be your takeaway from today's session that you will take back from your service? What are those kind of key messages, key bits that actually we need to make sure are disseminated across the children's workforce? So as I say, that's going to be running throughout the session this morning. Any thoughts you have at all, please pop it in there. You can answer multiple times, and we really do want to hear from you. So that's the kind of introduction for today, but I won't keep you here much longer because we've got a lot to get through. And to begin with, I'm going to introduce Jo League from Public Health on talking about Somerset's Continuum for support. So Jo, if it's okay with you, I will hand over to you.
That's lovely. Thank you, Steve. And thank you to everybody for joining us here this morning. So, Steve, I'm Jo, and I work as a health promotion manager within the local authority and as part of the public health team. And I take a lead and focus for children and young people's emotional health and well-being. Throughout the session, I hope to share an overview of the support that's available at this point, because we know that things change, and appreciate we've got many of our colleagues and their partners and our partners to be delivering presentations throughout. So we're going to be considering a continuum of support using a person-centred approach and looking at how this works in collaboration across agencies and services where we work together, supporting children and young people, their families and those who care for them. And we're just going to start with the Somerset picture and then look at the Somerset provision. So taking a view from community using our voluntary and support agencies to treatment. So looking at the national picture, now I'm not going to read through all of these slides, but just a bit of background here for you, and I'm sure you're aware you'll have these available for you at a later date. But this data was taken from second in a series of follow-up reports that was completed for the National Mental Health and Young People Survey, and that was in 2017 throughout England. This survey explored the mental health of children and young people in February and March 21, so it was during the coronavirus pandemic, and it captured changes since 2017. So we do know that there has been an increase in mental health issues among children, and so we're just going to sort of set the scene for that and then look at So where are we now? So taking a Somerset view, we can see that the mental health landscape in Somerset is quite challenging, and this is reflected in the high levels of need in comparison to other areas. And as Andrew was saying, it's a continuous changing landscape that has seen much progress over the years, and we're all continuing to work with. So there are other key trends alongside those that are named here on the slide, and that includes the escalating challenges that occurred as a result of the pandemic for young people, and also some local pressures around anxiety, eating disorders, and emotionally based school avoidance. The national and Somerset data that we've just shared here and highlighted for you has also been reflected within our local schools survey. And so on this slide, you'll see that the Somerset Schools Health and Wellbeing Survey, or SHAWS, is public health survey that's been taken in-house over the last couple of years. And it surveyed almost 8,500 children and young people in Somerset from school years 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10. The survey is completed every other year, and it helps us to hear the voice of children and young people about the lives that they lead, their habits, experiences, fears, hopes and aspirations. And so just back up really that the national data really helps us to gain an understanding of a kind of baseline for which we continue to develop our support and services. And so you'll see later in the week, I believe there's going to be a presentation from my colleague Jamila, and she'll be sharing some more information about the survey, the findings later this week. So what does all this mean for the children and young people and families and those who care for them here in Somerset? And we'll have a look at some of the key local developments. And again, as Andrew was sharing there, so starting with supporting schools in their emotional mental health and wellbeing provision. And here we've been able to look at supporting that through supporting schools to develop their whole setting approach and taking a focus on prevention and early intervention. And this has happened through a number of different ways. Again, just a bit of background from what you can see there on the slide. So we have been developing and delivering to the Senior Mental Health Lead training, which is a fairly new initiative. And we've been fortunate enough to deliver this in Somerset to school leads. So it's been delivered and developed as a collaborative project for myself at Public Health, our education psychology colleagues, our colleagues in CAMHS and Young Somerset. So we've delivered this training to 92 Somerset senior mental health leads, and so it's really supporting schools in their developments. So you'll also see that there's some supervision networks, and that's going to be offered through the EPS, Education Psychology Service, and there'll be more information about this and about any of our training offers and initiatives that comes out in the weekly schools bulletin. So just a little plug, if you haven't signed up for that already, then please do. We also again have the mental health support teams who offer low intensity direct therapeutic intervention and also support schools in developing a whole school approach. We have our public health training menu, which offers a range of free courses that Public Health we fund, and they're available for schools and the children and young people's workforce. And that training includes, amongst other things, mental health first aid and the different courses that can be accessed through that training. We also commission Lifebeat, who deliver our RSHE courses. And this page also includes other initiatives like our Schools Wellbeing and Arts Project, and mood shift stars, which supports active travel, and intense smoking prevention training. So you'll see at the bottom about trauma-informed Somerset, and Somerset is in its early days of developing a county-wide approach to trauma support, and we are committed, as a local authority, we're committed, and Somerset County committed to the development of trauma-informed principles and using that as a base for support moving forward across the county. So taking a look at this continuum of well-being, and throughout this session and to follow, we will take a look at a continuum of support that's available for children and young people, and we can take an I5 or 5 approach to this view. It can be helpful to consider mental health through this context continuum, recognising that everybody's needs will alter and shift and move, and thriving remains our central point as a person-centred approach. And thriving area supports our public health work of promotion of positive health and the prevention of ill health. And it's where the Somerset Wellbeing Framework sits, which we will look at next, and the other areas we will look at slightly after. So taking a look now at the whole school approach. And the Somerset Wellbeing Framework has been developed using national guidance, policies, and research that supports a whole school approach to promoting children and young people's emotional health and wellbeing. And Professor Catherine Weir, who is a lead within this area, she found in her research that a whole school commitment and ethos are key to making a difference. Now, I know not everybody's here from schools, but we really can take a view that this can also sit within a range of different settings. This approach does also sit for post-16 provisions and colleges. And when we think about all children and general wellbeing across all settings, supporting these 8 key principles is really important, and they can become the foundation of the work that we've been delivering on. So taking a look at the Somerset Wellbeing Framework in a little bit more detail. So we have the majority of schools in Somerset that have signed up to the framework. We use the framework as part of our delivery for the senior mental health lead, so it's not in addition, and it really is, again, as Andrew was saying, about celebrating all the good work that's already happening for schools and children and young people across the county. So it is a real central aim for senior leads training. So there's a range of different links within there, which hopefully you'll be able to access once you receive the slides. And particularly, we've been focusing as well on staff wellbeing and development, which has been a key area over the past couple of years. We're only as good to others as we are to ourselves. And so rather than having to listen to me talk about the framework lots, we've had a short animation developed, which hopefully Steve will be able to play for us, and it won't be too glitchy. So I'll just go on mute.
Hi, I am the heart of the Somerset Wellbeing Framework. I represent a local model for helping schools to adopt a whole school approach to emotional health and well-being. The framework is based on 8 principles that help create a positive culture of well-being that everyone can enjoy and experience in their school. We all know that well-being is fundamental to learning and achieving, and although life can have its ups and downs, there are 3 pillars of well-being that can help us stay resilient and promote positive mental health. These are belonging, where everyone is seen, valued, and heard. A community which has a strong sense of purpose and connection with others, where we feel safe to learn, play, explore, and celebrate our unique identities, with an acceptance for ourselves and others to help us express our true and authentic selves. Relationships. Positive relationships are central to our well-being, helping us to learn, grow, and thrive. Relationships start with how we view and treat ourselves. This impacts on how we relate to others and the wider world. Respectful relationships are the glue that holds a community together. offering care, kindness, warmth, and empathy. Lifestyles. Lifestyle behaviors, such as how well we eat, how much sleep we get, how active we are, combined with our connection with nature, can really impact on our mood, ability to cope, learn, and function in everyday life. To help you embed the 3 pillars of well-being through a whole school approach in your setting, you will find lots of resources and tools on our website. There's no costs involved. It's free to join. There is an audit tool to help you to understand your school's strengths and needs, and scrapbooks for these 3 pillars to help you celebrate your well-being successes. You can join the framework at www.cypsomersethealth.org.
Thank you, Steve. So you'll see our website link there, and just moving on now to the next slide, I just wanted to highlight for you the Mental Health Toolkit, which was developed a few years ago and sits within our site. And again, there's a link to this there. And the toolkit contains, among other things, pages and information, e-learning around body image and eating disorders. We also have the life hacks, which have been developed by young people for young people, and we know that those areas have proved really supportive for our children and young people across the county. So looking next at our training offer and initiatives, again, we've included a wealth of information links which we hoped would be suitable for you to access and sit with helping us to move forward from the areas that we know are a challenge in Somerset. So as I mentioned, we do offer a wealth of free and accessible both virtual and face-to-face training. We are now at the moment. And we know that some of these learning opportunities are shown here for you, but there are more on our site. And just looking at the training menu, again, there's a link to this at the top. It is kept up to date. We do update it regularly. And a lot of our training is also shared through the SSCP information portal as well, training page. So we're really sort of linking it all together to ensure it's accessible for everybody. So the EPS traded training offer is a schools only provision. So just to note that, but everything else can be available to the wider workforce. And so moving on to emotionally based school avoidance, we're aware that that's quite a heightened area for schools and young people at the moment, and we know that it's seen an increase. And so there are a range of resources that are already available through this link at the top, and they include a lot of support that can be accessed as sort of self-help at an early stage. So just moving on now to our more targeted support and looking at sort of getting help. As we've already have mentioned, we do have the Somerset Big Tent, who you'll be hearing from later. So just looking at some of the key local area services that support us with children's mental health and emotional wellbeing. And the Somerset Big Tent is a voluntary community social enterprise VCSE alliance of emotional wellbeing and mental health providers for children and young people within Somerset that operates through a quality and safety assurance process. And as I said, I know that you're going to be hearing a bit more from the Big Tent shortly. So moving on to our next slide, of looking at some more targeted support and getting help, so remaining within that area. At the start of the pandemic, the Somerset Directory was developed and we've included a wide range of different services. It does continue to be updated regularly, and it does have details of a real range of avenues that recognises children and young people first and offering choice in the support that they access. So the directory does include all of those that are listed here, plus others, and some of these we know will be you'll be hearing from later. So next we'll move to Young Somerset's Wellbeing Services, and the mental health support team, who have coverage across Somerset, as Andrew was sharing. And this service is for those presenting with more mild to moderate difficulties. And whilst some schools are supported by the mental health support team, others will still have access to Young Somerset's Wellbeing service. So again, we know that you'll be hearing more from both these services, both later to follow and later on this week. So whilst both Young Somerset and mental health support teams support children and young people, that includes learning skills and strategies which help them to thrive, and also accessing self-help or further signposting as appropriate. And the mental health support teams also support schools with their development of a whole school. So again, just joining it all together. We also have in Somerset the CAMHS 2 Plus service, which is designed to bridge the gap between mental health support team, Young Somerset and specialist CAMHS. And again, you'll be hearing more from them later. I feel like I'm saying that lots, which is fantastic that you've got a chance to hear an overview and then more depth from these services. So this is a county-wide service and access through the SPA helpline. And then we move on to specialist CAMHS and level 3 of getting risk support. So Somerset CAMHS is a specialist service for those children and young people with the most complex and significant mental health difficulties. And we acknowledge that there may be often frustrations when we feel a service is required that doesn't quite appear to meet the need. Or be able to offer that support. And as we noted earlier, there is a real wide continuum of emotional, mental health and wellbeing support. And we all have a role to play in working together, and communication between the children and young people that we're supporting, their families and each other as services is absolutely key. One of the things we know that is most helpful when considering CAMHS referral is to talk to the team on the SPA helpline, and they're hugely knowledgeable about the CAMHS criteria, and we've included that CAMHS criteria document within this slide for you to be able to access. They can also support around sort of the mental health presentations and looking at asking the right questions. So CAMHS do provide a significant and really valuable service here in Somerset, and it is at that specialist level. So in terms of getting the right access and the right support at the right time, which I'm sure you've heard many times before, I appreciate there has been a lot of information that's been shared here and will continue to be over the course of today and the course of the week, and we'll be ensuring that this information is shared with you through our website. We're going to be hosting some of this information. I know that you'll have these slides to support afterwards. So just looking now at a slide from our schools survey, we do have a wide range of services within the voluntary and community sector that can support young people and children in Somerset. And data from our school survey shows that we do still have some way to go in ensuring that the children and young people and their families are aware of and know how to access this support as, when and if needed. And so just a couple of key points to note: that there's a high percentage of secondary school young people that do have a preference to speak to someone in person rather than through a virtual mode. That's not to say it's the same for everyone. And a high percentage of respondents in primary schools do believe that they have someone to talk to about their worries, and yet this reduces as these young people progress and become older and into secondary settings. And finally, I did mention earlier about our own self-care, staff wellbeing, and this is fundamental to the whole school approach and all the work that we do from our services around supporting mental health and wellbeing. So staff wellbeing is one of the 8 key principles, as you saw. Throughout all of our work and any delivery, we actively promote the need for self-care and recognise that actually if the staff and the workforce are feeling stressed and uncared for, burnt out, this will really impact and reduce ability to support children and young people. So we're really clear that staff wellbeing and self-care comes first, and that's not always easy to do and something that we often find quite challenging. But we've included here just a few of the key areas that as adults and staff we're able to access for our own wellbeing and support. And I'll pass you back over now to Steve, and thank you for your time.
Lovely. Thank you very, very much for that, Joe. Great kind of start. Great to kind of see some of the work that's been taking place already. Joe, there's been a few questions pop up in the chat, which is brilliant. Thank you very much for popping those in there. I think realistically, probably we're not going to get time for a Q&A session as we go through each of the presentations because we've got so much to cram in today. So if you have got a question, please do pop it into the chat. And Joe, if it's possible, I'm just wondering if as we go through the next presentations, you might be able to kind of have a quick review of the chat that's come in and maybe respond to any questions in the chat. Is that okay?
Yes, of course, that's absolutely fine.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And apologies to anybody who wanted to ask a kind of question verbally, but I think, say time-wise, we're probably going to have to move it on. Joe, just very quickly, a couple of kind of key bits that I've seen in the chat here. One kind of question that's come up is about whether the training will be available to private schools. And another really interesting question, I think really key question about home educated, electively home educated children as well, and accessing support there. But yeah, if you're able to have a look at the chat and respond to anything in there, that would be fantastic. Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you, Joe. Thanks for starting us off here. I am going to move things on rather swiftly because I say we've got a lot to get through this morning. And next, I'd like to introduce you to Adam Clark, who, as Joe mentioned earlier, about the Big Tent. He's going to talk to us about the Big Tent in Somerset. So Andrew, if it's okay, I shall hand over to you now then.
Thanks, Steve. Colleagues, good morning. Apologies, I'm not Adam Clark. Those of you who have met me will recognise me perhaps as Nick Harwood, Chief Executive of Young Somerset. Adam is required elsewhere, so I'm stepping in at short notice as perhaps a very poor substitute, so my apologies for that. But I will share with you some of the work of the Somerset Big Tent, a little bit of background on where it's come from, where it is, what it is, and where it's headed. So Young Somerset, if move on, Steve, please, if we can. And really, the Somerset Big Tent is a small team at Young Somerset. It's commissioned by CCG to be the facilitator and enabler of the Somerset Big Tent, which is a VCSE alliance, as you heard Joe describe a minute ago, designed to bring organisations together in the third sector and make their services much more accessible much more rapidly to children and young people in the county. So if we move on, Steve, I can talk a little bit about what that role means for Young Somerset. Young Somerset is the largest youth work charity in the county. We are the IAPT provider for children and young people's wellbeing practitioners and the joint provider with CAMHS on education mental health support teams, as you'll hear later. And you'll also hear about some of our higher needs work as well in presentations from colleagues. But as an organisation, we've been commissioned to, as I said, enable and facilitate the Big Tent. And what that looks like is this. So we have the resource and capacity to be able to facilitate members of the Alliance leading and owning the Alliance so that it's done with and collaboratively in partnership so that we can get the messaging out to children, young people and professionals. And the vision for the Big Tent came from a conversation I had with a colleague at CCG, seems like a million years ago now with COVID got in the way, but a very late evening conversation in a pouring rain in the car park, where we were thinking about how it can be a very complicated landscape for children, young people, parents and professionals to try and navigate and try and get those young people nearer to the support they need at the time they need it. And we were thinking that our sector, my sector, the third sector, the voluntary sector, is a very complicated landscape. It's ever shifting. People stand up projects quite quickly, and sometimes those are time limited and can disappear. Sometimes they do have duration, and it can be really hard to know what's outside in your community that's accessible and so on and so forth. And what that relies on is other professionals having the time and capacity to try and find something to respond to the need that they're being presented with, the child and young person they're serving. And actually, we thought it would be much easier if we could develop an alliance that was trusted and that people could go to. So it was a concept of having a big tent being the sort of umbrella, the kind of analogy there really, under which organisations can sit. And it's these governance processes you can see there that make sure that the Big Tent is fit for purpose. So if we can skip on a bit there, Steve. What we'll see next is where we've come from and got to. So the vision was probably created in late 1819 and developed through those years, alongside, as Andrew said at the start, increasing development and awareness of wider services supporting children and young people in the county. And this is where we've got to now. I'm not going to share that, not going to read those numbers out, but you can see that it's a growing live community alliance where we're trying to bring things to bear. And Joe described it quite rightly as an alliance within which there is robust quality assurance and safety processes, so that colleagues can trust organisations to be bona fide and have strong governance, strong safeguarding, strong safe recruitment practices, and know full well that any service that sits under the big tent auspice, if you like, is trusted and resilient and can do the things that it says it will do in supporting children and young people, which is monumentally important, of course. Thank you, Steve. And so it's more than just a directory. This is really important to me. That the key vision was yes, about having somewhere that's accessible and very easy for people to navigate and find the way and find things that are appropriate for them, and not be directive in that, but be led by what the child, young person, their family and colleagues, professionals are experiencing. But it's really about building an alliance that would be attractive to new members coming in, whether that's a national charity operating locally in Somerset, or whether it's a very, very small micro charity, if you like. There's plenty of those in Somerset who are doing things that we would recognise have a value in the wellbeing space. And what we wanted to do is have a consistently growing network of engaged and proactively participating member organisations, again, so that this thing has a life of its own, it's organic and fluid, and the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. Building that community with a shared and sort of collective focus really on wanting to improve access and improve the offer from the third sector, because we have a luxury in the third sector. We can move fast, we can break things, we can take risks, we have a healthy appetite for risk, and we can try things out. And that's where we're able to bring external funding into Somerset for opportunities that statutory colleagues can't necessarily access, and that enhances the system, of course, and makes much more readily available many more choices for children, young people and their families to access the support they need. Really, it's an alliance model. This is important to us, that there is a strength in that alliance. So we are sharing resourcing, we are networking, we're talking collaboratively a lot. We're taking time to build partnerships that we know add value to the offer for children and young people. And what that means is we can share training, we can share best practice, we can learn from each other. We've got resourcing that's shared. And the marketing, if you like, is shared such that very small organisations actually can get a better profile, a better reach, a better traction in the system from being a member of the Big Ten. So moving on to Steve again, please. Thank you. I'll start to gallop through this a bit quickly. I'm conscious of time as well. We're in the phase now where Adam Clark is leading on a phase where we're reviewing and thinking things through. We have, COVID has had an impact on the direction of travel of Big Ten. Coterminous to that, parallel to that, there are a number of different conversations about how the wider system can become more accessible, and Joe shared a whole bunch of the stuff with you there, and there's work going on led by local authority as well about family hubs and what that might look like. So we're evolving and we're thinking these things through, and you'll see in the next few slides really about how we're working with people to try and improve our offer, and some of those are listed there. Again, I'm not going to read those to you, but you can see that we want to share increase the visibility and share that with colleagues, and critically, again, Steve, we can move on, that'd be lovely. And the voice of children and young people, this is Young Somerset, where we believe that putting young people first will improve the county, and listening to them and the organisations that are representative and advocate on their behalf, such as Parent Care Reform, really important, such that we're designing something with them, not doing 2 or 4 young people. That's incredibly important to us. Really, where we've got to here is just a summary of where we know we've built this identity of the Somerset Big Ten. We know that we've got a partnership approach that's right at the core of that is making it stronger, and we know that we've been able to, for example, winter diversion NHS England money that comes into every local authority as a means of project activity that can divert people away from hospitals during the winter months, because that's a pressure in the system. We were the conduit. The Big Tent was a vehicle by which member organisations could access pots of money to add additional services to that winter pressure, or to have small test and learn pilot projects. So that was another bunch of money that came into the county, was routed through the Big Tent and went out and made a difference in the lives of a number of children and people in the county over those winter months where we know the needs can spike. We're working towards the calendar of the year, really, through the academic year heading forwards, around a conference, around workshops, around training. So keep your eyes out for those. We want really to celebrate the achievements and recognise the good practice that's there, and use the Big Tent as that framework to hold all that together. Thank you, Steve. And what we'll do then is make sure that the Somerset Big Tent, the branding, the identity is really front and centre of people's minds, so that again colleagues don't have to know with detail what's out there in their community and don't have to try and keep up with that. As I said, it's a very fast moving, evolving world, but actually can come to the Big Tent and be supported to be brokered through into the best opportunities for support for children and young people at the time they need it. And the next few slides then really, again, are just some website analytics, and as Steve will skip through these for me. You'll just see some of the reach and traction we're getting, which is great, and we want to improve that, and we're working with colleagues to do that. Just to pause on that one very quickly, you'll see it'll be no surprise to you at all throughout all our services at Young Somerset and in the system at this particular level, sort of tier 2, tier 1, tier 2, and heading towards tier 3. Anxiety is the single biggest presenting issue, and you'll see that there. What I would say is that we're experiencing that any presenting issue comes with others. It comes with a range of complexity and additional issues, whether they're social economic issues as well, alongside some of that for children and young people. So the cases that we're trying to support are increasingly complicated as well. Thanks, Steve. And we'll just keep going through those and some analytics there. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Nick, and apologies for getting the wrong presenter right at the beginning there. And thank you so much for speeding through that one, and apologies for the time there. But yeah, very much appreciate that. And just to reassure anybody, I've seen a few bits in the chat. Yes, the recording from this will be available after this week. We'll try and edit it all together as quickly as we possibly can and get it online, hopefully next week, possibly the week after, and it will be with the presentation as well. So you'll be able to go through all of this and see all of the links and details there. I don't think we've had any questions come up for yourself during that one, Nick, but if anybody does have questions for Nick, again, please do pop in the chat there. We really want to hear from you for that one. Just a quick couple of things I've seen popping up in the chat. A few people kind of identifying some challenges, some difficulties and barriers at the moment for young people and mental health support. I know there's a question there from Helen about actually how do we kind of really engage those hard to engage young people and really kind of offer them the support they need. What I'd say to that is that today is very much about showcasing kind of what is out there. But there is a survey that we're going to ask you to complete at the end. Actually, we might be able to pop that into the chat for you in just a minute. It's just a Microsoft Forms questionnaire. We'd really want to hear from you because I say that's very much about taking those questions forward and actually seeing how we work on those over the next 12 months or so to kind of really kind of tackle those kind of key issues for you. Also on the Friday session, which is very much a roundup session for the week, that's going to be very much around discussion around some of these kind of some of the challenges that face us. Kind of where do we take this next? So if you are able to join us on the Friday session, we're going to be having breakout groups there, really having those discussion points to take those messages forward. So if you can join us on the Friday as well, that'd be really valuable, because we say those are the key points we really want to make sure we take forward out of this week. Okay, so that's enough from me for a moment, as we're going to move things on now, and we're going to hear from Lauren Finn, who's going to talk to us about the work of Kooth. So Lauren, over to you.
Lovely, thank you. Right then, so good morning and welcome everybody. I am Lauren. I am the engagement lead for Kooth covering Somerset. So essentially my role is to embed Kooth into the community, and I would do that by a number of ways, informing professionals like yourselves about Kooth and how we support children and young people, and also going into schools, doing workshops and assemblies from year 6 right into secondary schools and colleges, just to make sure that young people are aware of Kooth and how we can support them. So I'll leave my email address in the chat. So if anyone wants to get in touch moving forward, I'll happily have that discussion with you. So Kooth is commissioned by the Somerset CCG for 11 to 18-year-olds. So young people from their 11th birthday right up to their 19th birthday can use Kooth free of charge. So many of you would have already heard about Kooth. Essentially, we are an online mental health support service for children and young people, and it is a website and not an app, all accessed at www.kooth.com. I'll just do a bit of a summary of Kooth, and then I'll actually take you onto the website, because I think actually seeing that is quite helpful. Okay, so just a bit of a background. Kooth was founded in 2001 to help break down that stigma attached to mental health services. So we work across the country. We're commissioned usually by local authorities and CCGs, and I think we're in about 90% now of England, Wales and Scotland, and growing very, very rapidly. So Kooth is our flagship service. We've won awards for delivery, and we're a fully integrated service, and we do provide gateways to other services, whatever that need to that service user, including face-to-face counselling. As we've said before, you know, not all young people want online counselling, and if that was the case, we would signpost them to a local service. So we do find that we attract the hard to reach and under the radar young people. A lot of the BAME community, a lot of the LGBTQ+ community as well, do feel like they can come on and open up with our counsellors, as it is a completely anonymous service. What they share is up to them and they are in control. And I think that in that aspect, they do feel like they can open up and share with our counsellors.
Lauren, sorry, apologies to interrupt for a second. I don't think people can see the presentation that you're sharing.
Okay, sorry.
Apologies
it says I'm presenting. Let me stop and try again then. Sorry.
Thank you.
Right, hopefully that'll come up.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Got it.
No worries. Sorry, guys. Okay, so last year we supported over 200,000 young people through our service, through a variety of our support tools on Kooth, and I'll go into a bit more detail about those in a moment. Okay, so as I said earlier, national picture. We are a national service, but commissioned locally. But as I said, that is growing very rapidly. That just shows you a bit of a national picture. But as I said, I think we're in about 90% now of England, Wales, and going into Scotland. So this is just some Somerset specific data highlights for you from January to March this year, just to show, you know, really how many young people are using, you know, Kooth in Somerset. So we had 742 unique service users in that quarter. So that's unique young people coming on to get support at Kooth. And then there was 4,025 logins through those young people coming on. And top presenting issues, you know, quite predictably, anxiety and stress, one of the top ones there, self-harm and suicidal thoughts with female, and our male users, self-harm, anxiety and stress and suicidal thoughts again. So just worth pointing that out. So I'm just going to show you a quick video. This is actually on our homepage, and it is just a quick summary of what's on there. But as I said, in a moment, I will take you on just so you can quickly see that.
Welcome to Kooth, a free, safe and anonymous place for young people to find online support and counselling. There's a bunch of features and tools to support you if you're looking for advice or simply aren't feeling your best. Kooth Magazine, a place full of opinions, creative pieces and personal experiences written by young people. Express yourself and help others along the way. Try writing a short story, an informative article, or write about your own interests and experiences. You'd be surprised how good it can feel to contribute, and you'll be helping others too. Kooth discussion boards. Here you can start or join a conversation on all sorts of things, from anxiety and relationship advice to tips for relaxing after a stressful day. Kooth Goals. This useful tool can help you set smart personal goals and track the progress you make towards achieving them. Kooth Journal. Like a personal diary, your Kooth Journal will help you track how your mood changes as a result of things that happen throughout the week. This can help you identify behaviours or events that tend to make you feel good, as well as those that make you feel less positive. And Kooth Chat and Messenger, for when you want to talk to Kooth's friendly online team about anything that might be bothering you. At Kooth, there's always somebody who will listen and understand.
Okay, so you'll all know Kooth is online counselling and wellbeing support. So the real key points there are young people can sign up themselves. That accessibility is key. No referral is needed. As and when they need that support, they can log on and get it. So if they wanted to talk to one of our fully qualified counsellors, they are online 365 days a year between midday and 10 p.m. on weekdays and 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. on weekends. And they can have a text-based live chat chat with them, very similar to, you know, WhatsApp, between those times if they want to, or they can alternatively just message the team. It's just like an email. They can write down how they are feeling, and then someone will get back to them within 24 hours from our team, usually that same day if they can. So the two ways they can message a team, and I really stress that the earlier they log on, the better. You know, the evenings can get really busy, so when signposting, just make sure that the earlier that they log on will mean the less kind of wait that they need to talk to someone on Kooth. So we also offer a range of therapeutic tools and activities, and I'll show you those in a moment. So Kooth is commissioned in Somerset. It is free for young people to use. It's completely safe. Everything on Kooth is pre-moderated, so everything's checked before it's made live to make sure it's a safe, trusted place for our young people. And I think most importantly for young people, it is completely anonymous. What they share is up to them. They are in control. So we really stress that we will support any young person, whatever that level of need. There are no thresholds for support. Anything that's making them worried is worth talking about. And as we know, that early intervention is really key. So we really stress that. Our sign-up process has changed slightly, so I just wanted to add that into this presentation today. So when they log on to Kooth, they just have to click on Join Kooth on the home page, and there is two ways now that they can select the area and where they live. So this is the only change. So now they've added, they can search via the first part of the postcode if they want to, or they can just select from the list. So that is the only change, but I just wanted to point that out. So they do have to sign up to use Kooth. A really simple process, but also pointing out it will not identify who they are. So we ask the area where they live, we ask so that then breaks it down so they can either put it into their postcode or their location. The year and month that they're born, that means they'll see age appropriate content, the gender they associate with, their ethnicity, and then they have to create a username and password. So once they've done that, they are then logged on and they can, you know, use Kooth as and when they need to. And we really stress to young people that, you know, we are there 365 days a year. When they need that extra bit of support, we are there to support them. And as I mentioned earlier, there's lots and lots of more things and more support tools on Kooth. That peer-to-peer support is a really large area of the website, our Kooth community, and I'll show you an example of that in a second. Okay, just to point out as well, we are also on Instagram if you want to follow us, and also we release one podcast a week. They're really popular with our young people, and we also release a Monday motivational playlist on Spotify every week as well. So if I just take you onto the website, I know time's an issue, but I'll literally just fly on there so you can see that.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, you got it? Oh, brilliant. Fab. Okay, so once they log on to Kooth, this is what they'll see. So the top here is a journal. They can just write a few words of how they're feeling and select an emoji. That's quite good at picking up on any trends of why they're feeling, you know, certain ways on certain days. Our mini activities, now these were launched probably about 1.5 years ago now, and actually these are really nice little mini activities young people can do to look after their own mental health and well-being. 23 activities in total, and we are, you know, adding to these all the time, and they were made in consultation with young people, so we know this is what they're wanting. But just to give you an example, make your own coping box, that's a really popular one. Dance like nobody's watching, but there's lots of different ones on there, and they're really popular with our young people and also applicable for all age groups, you know, right from the younger ones right upwards. So there's pretty much a quick link to everything on the home page, but I'll show you just quickly from the top. We've got our magazine. Now there's hundreds of articles on here, lots of self-help articles written by our professional team, and also young people sharing their own experiences and stories. And as we know, actually one young person reading that someone else is going through something quite similar to them can be really reassuring. And not just about mental health, so the categories are here. You know, mental health is there, but there's also hobbies, interests. Creative writing is one of our most popular categories, so some really great content in there for young people, and they can just come on to use the other resources. They don't need to talk to somebody if they don't need to. And just to show you an example of that kind of community element, so This is an article written by our professional team, and then you've got young people there sharing, you know, their experiences and stories, and then young people can then reply to those comments. So it's a really nice example of that community. So we've also got the forum. Now, this is a great place where young people can come and give and receive support in others in similar situations to them. So they can start their own discussion and wait for young people to comment and give them support. But a reminder that all those comments are checked before they're made live. Or they can actually just search through all the different categories, very similar to the magazine. And actually, they're a young carer and they want to interact with other young carers, and they can just look at the current posts that are there, and actually then they can comment and give other young people support. So lots and lots of support on there for young people. And they're just the dots here. That's a link to the activities, goal setting, journal. They can also meet the team, which is a handy little resource if they want to specify a counsellor. And then the top right hand, just finally, is the chat. So if it was midday, there'd be an option to join the chat queue here. That would be the live chat option with one of our counsellors, or they can just message a team at any point of day, and they will get back to them within 24 hours. The first 3 sessions are assessment based, and if that young person is a higher risk young person, they would be assigned a counsellor and have that structured ongoing support with them. But actually our one-off messaging, so young people coming on and just talking to our counsellors once, is actually the most popular method. Actually, they just want to come on and offload and talk to somebody, and that is enough for them. But that ongoing support is there should they need it. So that's pretty much everything. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening today. And as I said, I'll pop my email address in the chat if you've got any, questions moving forward. Thank you.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Lauren. Lots in there to go through. And again, Lauren, if it's possible, I can see a couple of bits that have come up in the chat to ask some questions regarding Kooth. If you're able to respond to those in the chat, that would be fantastic.
I will. No problems at all.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Lauren. And I'm going to move on very swiftly now to have introduced John here, who's going to talk to us about the space. So, John, can I hand over to you?
Good morning, everybody. My name is John Pimblett. I'm the chair of the space. I'm going to take a helicopter view of who we are, what we do, to raise your comments, to raise your questions. The website is at the end of the presentation, so please get in contact with us, raise a chat, and let's have a conversation. Our aim of the space is that no local child or young person goes without the support they need to thrive. An obvious statement, but how do we do that? We make it possible for children and people and their families, the parents and families, within the Cheddar Valley to access independent, preventive mental health and emotional wellbeing services and support. We do that by supporting the 3,000 young children in the Cheddar Valley area, working strategically with our partners, Wessex Learning Trust in their first, middle and senior schools and the parish councils. And our area, of course, in the Cheddar Valley is typical of every Somerset rural location, with all the challenges and benefits that brings. We were born out of a community need, out of a household survey back in 2017, when young people and the needs of young people came as number one. We gained an NHS testing grant at that time, where we certainly tested and learned, and then the rest is history, and it's where we are now. We are striving to establish a community of support built around the iThrive model that Joe went through. And we hosted an iThrive implementer workshop with the national iThrive team and Somerset CCG back in October 2019, which really set us along this wheel of community of support. It set us on the focus of getting advice and getting help, those first 2 support quadrants, by providing free counselling for 9 to 13 and 13 to 17-year-olds. Could we just hold a minute, please, Steve? For young people in school, colleges, those being homeschooled, anybody in the Cheddar Valley, and also trying to reach those hard to reach. Our 9 to 17 counselling requests for support are climbing. For the first time since we started, we have a waiting list. the age of young people seeking help is reducing, the complexity of concerns is increasing, which for us means a longer course of counselling, and that puts extra strain on our support staff who monitor our efficiency and effectiveness. We're concerned at the moment, as usual, as Nick and Lauren have said, with the usual anxiety, self-harm, body image, but we are very concerned about the apparent increase in suicidal thoughts, and we're working with our partners to try and understand that. At the moment, we're supporting 42 young people, and we show a 90% improvement in our CORE, our core mental health indicators, increased from last year's 83%. With that reduction in the age that we're seeing requesting counselling, we've identified 5 to 8 years, and we're developing a series of pilot programs for targeted play therapy and other targeted support. We identified the need for younger age children, and we're currently supporting children in 8 schools together with 3 other pilots. We're currently reviewing the results and learning opportunities to implement a full support service in the very near future. And certainly we see the 5 to 8 year old programme as our strategic #1 priority at the moment in early help and intervention. Moving on from that, as our work grows, there's clear evidence that family support is needed in the family unit in the context of child, parent and family. We're currently piloting a support programme with 7 families, and again reviewing the results from that to offer a full service support in the Cheddar Valley linked to the 5 to 8 years play therapy programme. As part of the community, we run a weekly youth club with 32 members with strong links to the community, such as Lions, Rotary and local businesses. Thanks, Steve. And the links to other services, such as integration with our therapy outcomes, really aimed at tackling isolation, relationship issues and social connectivity. And if we see a theme developing, like we've just done with suicidal thoughts, then of course we don't use that language, we change the language, but then in the youth club we'll have a learning and feedback session to study and understand. And the feedback from that youth club is good. We run a series of holiday out of term activities. Normally some 100 people join our both indoor and art-based outdoor activities, aimed at improving how young people feel about themselves, reducing isolation, building resilience and confidence, and of course to have fun. Our Roots and Shoots Wellbeing allotment offers self and welcoming space as a therapeutic tool to improve mental and physical and social health. And together with our Alliance members, our voluntary Alliance members in the counselling sector, we launched the Somerset One-Stop Counselling Access website called Somerset Youth Access that allows young people across Somerset to request help local to where they are. The difference that we make with our approaches is self-explanatory. Thanks, Steve. We're currently supporting 262 children and young people. We have a 90% improvement in our CORE indicators. The box outlines some of the counselling sessions, youth club sessions, etc., etc. But really the next box, really identifies our aim, having fun, but the parents say in that box on the right, we have our old Dave back. Thank you once again. That means such a lot to us, it really, really does. Thanks, Steve. I've given you a very quick flavour of who we are and what we do and our community of support concept and activities. The website address is there. Please come to us, please ask the questions, please raise them on chat. And thank you very much for your time and attention.
Lovely. Thank you very, very much, John, as well. Lots to get through with that one as well. And I think there's just one question for you in the chat, which is just about geographical location, if that's okay. But hopefully we'll be able to respond to that one. So thank you so much for your time, John. Really appreciate that one.
Yeah.
Right then. So next up, we're going to be hearing from Lisa, who's going to talk to us about 2BU. So Lisa, do we have you there?
Thanks very much. Hello, everybody. I feel like I'm in really good company this morning. Appreciate you having me here. My favourite subject, 2BU. So I've got a short amount of time to talk to you a little bit about what we do. My name is Lisa. My pronouns are she and they, and I'm the Chief Exec of 2BU Somerset. We've recently converted to charity status, which I'm really proud of. And I'd like to introduce you to our team and a little bit about who we are and what we do. So we support LGBTQ+ young people in Somerset, and we've got a cracking team. I started with 2BU as a volunteer, and as you can see, we've grown since 2003 when we started. It's evolved since that time in 2003 under the shadow of, for example, Section 28. We started as a group to support young gay guys, and here we are now in 2022. It's very different, as is the language and the young people we're supporting. So we've got trustees on board as well. We've got teachers. We've got parents. We've got counsellors. We've got clinical psychologists. We've got community development worker, all volunteering for us. We feel very blessed by the people who are supporting us. But we are looking for trustees. If anyone is interested, please do put them in touch. Our core work, if you like, is in the age 13 to 19, but we are working with young people aged 11 to 25, as we're seeing our sort of more requests for our services and more requests for our need. So our mission, if you like, our mission is that all young people who identify as LGBTQ+ have access to support if they need it. Now, that's not that we provide it. As I said, I'm in really good company. And given that times have changed, I feel really kind of really supported by the workforce in Somerset and the professionals out there who are providing the support for young people. So I guess our space in this is about providing a space in a targeted way, by providing information, by being able to share resources. Happy Pride Month, everyone. There's some fantastic opportunities and engagement events that are happening across the county in schools, colleges, community settings, and we're delighted to be invited to support that. But it's you that's delivering on that out in the county. So we aim to be visible role models, share the knowledge that we've got, share the resources that we know exist, and to promote that sort of equality, diversity, raising awareness. We do a bit of training as well. So that's a little bit about what we're doing and why. In terms of the service that we provide, we've got, like I said, regular support groups where we can do one-to-one support. We've got the website and community group chats for the young people who are members of 2BU. We've got the outreach support. Like I said about the events, that's just pretty new to us, to go out and be sort of visible, a range of events across the county. And we've done, training, talks and conferences as well. So I guess it's an invitation to engage us. We've got the direct support. So all of the groups, we've got in-person groups in Taunton and Yeovil, and we do those in-person groups for up 13 to 18. We've also got an in-person over 18 group in Taunton, but we learned so much in the pandemic that actually what we've got is an online offer as well. So we've maintained everything that we learned in that time, and we've maintained it now. So we've got online drop-in for our under 18s, and we've got one for our over 18s as well. We also run a session called 2BU Tea Time. I love tea time. We bring our young people and their folks in the same space, and they're all there working together about the things that are coming up for them when young people are exploring their identity and the language they're using to describe themselves. But of course, their folks are having their own experience in that too. So we're inviting them to come and work with our team. So that's a direct support. We have got some indirect support, if you like. So our outreach team, with some brand new funding, gives us 2 outreach youth workers. We've got Shelley in the east and Cole in the west. And so, like, if you haven't met them, then do get in touch. Now, they are able to support your pride groups in your settings. We've got pride groups in schools and colleges across this county that I could have only have dreamt of in 2003. It's phenomenal. So we want to come and help support you, bring our resources, bring our visibility as well. So the team is out and they can deliver on some one-to-one support if you like. So yeah, please do get in touch if you'd like to engage our outreach team. So who do we work with? Well, anybody. Our young people can contact us if they want to get involved. Families contact us. We're working, like we said, with the parents. There's no referral, like we've said before. It's really just email us and we'll see what the young person, how they want to engage with us. We're working in education settings, in healthcare settings. We have the local PCSOs pop into our groups on a regular basis, and we're out there in community, which is fantastic, and we're really, really proud of that. So I guess it's a bit of a whistle-stop introduction to who we are and what we do. My email is there, and I guess what I want to, the slide that's just flipped past, is about resources. So I've mentioned that. If you would like our window sticker, why don't you say it? It's okay to be you here in your setting. If you'd like those, email me, tell me where I'm sending them, and we can send them to you. It's a bit, our young people will photograph them and send them to me. It's a bit like, I don't know, I Spy, maybe it's that. But if you'd like them on your door, do get in touch. And our pronoun badges as well. If you'd like pronoun badges for your team to sort of raise that visibility, email me again, let me know which ones you would like, and I'll send them out to you. So we've absolutely got resources to share with you. Yeah, that's me. It's really nice to be welcome here today. Thanks for having me, and thank you very much for joining me to say it's okay to be you in Somerset.
Fantastic. Lovely. Thank you, Lisa. And I think we've just got one question in the chat for you, but also lots of praise for 2BU. It's really nice to see the kind of the word is out there, the message is out there, and really positive feedback from young people as well. So yeah, really good to see. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So there's one question in the chat, I think, just in terms of kind of raising awareness, where there may be some areas of challenge there. But if I can leave that to answer in the chat, Lisa. So thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Take care. Right then, I'm going to move swiftly on now to introduce Ruth, who's going to talk to us now about Young Somerset. So Ruth, thank you very much for joining us, and I shall hand over to you now.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I'm going to talk mainly about the bit of Young Somerset that I'm involved in, which is the mental health and wellbeing team. So as an organisation, we have 3 strands of work. We have our youth work, alternative provision, which is for young people generally who are referred in and have funding, and it's where young people who are not really fitting in with school and are struggling, and they can come and work with Barney doing some environmental work, or with our guys who offer some mechanics. We also offer some hair and beauty as well, which is something we've recently developed. I don't know if anyone's already spoken about our enterprise, which is our shop, Bold and Brave in Taunton. I don't know if people have seen that, but we have a shop, and it's in the it's near opposite sort of where Debenhams used to be, and it's for young people to showcase work so they can make things, sell them in the shop, and also can get experience in actual retail work there as well, with the lovely Carol. And obviously emotional health and wellbeing, which is what I do. So These are some of our sort of core principles. Work on an evidence-based approach. We're responsive to need, innovate and create, which is something that as a charity that allows us to be quite innovative and set things up quite quickly. And we've had some quite exciting projects recently, which I think someone else is going to talk to you about, Jigsaw and Mosaic. Led by young people, co-designed and co-tested, and it's collaborative as well. There's just some figures there that we've worked with 3,500 young people a year. This year, we've probably turned over about 3 million. We have a voluntary board of directors and a youth board. I started at Young Somerset in 2018 in the Wellbeing team, when the Wellbeing team consisted of 2 people, and it's now over 40. So we've had quite a rapid growth recently, and we've now got over 100 staff and 12 to 15 volunteers. And as I say, lots of new development and exciting projects. There's the 3 strands. So the youth work strand, I think someone else is going to talk to you later about Jigsaw and the diabetes project. Alternative provision, as I said, that is about working with young people, offering them alternative to school, maybe 1 or 2 days a week, going out on the hills, working in our workshop. And then we've got our mental health and wellbeing team. So that's the, I think you've already had a conversation about the big tent as well. So in terms of our wellbeing, you can see there the number of requests we've received. And it's been growing. Our referrals or requests for service have increased quite rapidly recently. And they come from parents, schools, professionals, and from young people themselves. There's just some figures there showing that the young people that work with us, 52% made a reliable improvement. And the overall satisfaction, we asked people to respond with some feedback, and it was 94%, so that's pretty good. The average age of children and young people was 12 years, but we work sort of 0 to 18, but generally if a young person is primary age, we would work with the parent. And you can see the average age was 12. So most cases in the adolescent group, followed by middle childhood and early childhood. So much smaller number there for the young people. So there are 2 strands really to the mental health and wellbeing team. So we've got community wellbeing practitioners who, as it says, work in the community. And then we also have our education mental health practitioners. So a lot of schools in Somerset are designated mental health support team schools, and they have an educational mental health practitioner placed in that school or across a group of schools. Now, both teams deliver the same intervention. So it's a low intensity CBT interventions. Both sets of people are trained for a year at Exeter University, and we work very closely with Exeter. This is a national scheme, the wellbeing practitioners, and we have a mixture of qualified and trainee staff, and it's made very clear to people whether that's what they're getting, a trainee or a qualified member of staff. So I say it's low intensity CBT. We can work in community venues. We can also run groups, and we also have a team of assistant practitioners. Now they're non-clinical, but they can offer groups around things like exam stress and some of that general sort of lifestyle, like sleep, eating, just general information about your well-being. The education mental health practitioners, they support a whole school approach to mental health. So they work in a school and they can do a whole school audit and then support the school to make sure that the provision goes across the whole school. And again, they're supported by the assistant practitioners. So low intensity cognitive behaviour therapy. So it says there it works best for children, young people and parent carers when they have the cognitive abilities to be aware of their thoughts and behaviours and the motivation to work towards change. So we can only work with young people who really want to engage with us and want to change. And it's for mild to moderate mental health needs, so anxiety, low mood, OCD. But where a young person's in quite a complex situation where there's a lot going on and it's really hard for them to put into practice what we're doing on a weekly basis, then probably it's not the right time for them and we will find something more suitable. Or where there's high risk present. We do work with young people who, as it says here, so low mood, mild to moderate depression, panic, generalized anxiety, social anxiety, and some of these things, you know, we've seen quite a big increase during lockdown, certainly in terms of sort of health anxieties and social anxiety and sleep problems. So this, I've just put this in because I thought it was important to kind of say what we don't work with, because you know, we do often get requests to work with young people where what we offer wouldn't be the most suitable, and then we do try to signpost or to refer on to other services as part of the sort of wider mental health offer. So I think you can see there, if the main problem is anger or violence, then we wouldn't work with that. Any kind of diagnosed like bipolar, psychosis, then that would more likely be CAMHS or personality disorders. We don't work with eating disorders. And in terms of OCD, we wouldn't work with somebody who has a problem with blood or vomit, because that's not really something we could sort of test out with them. So again, that would be for a different service. And also, as I said, if young people are self-harming on a regular basis, and then we would refer on to CAMHS. So here's some examples of some of the interventions. It's very practical. It's not therapy. It's not counselling. So it's quite a practical intervention. So behaviour activation might be someone's got themselves into a place where they're feeling quite low, so they've stopped seeing their friends, they've stopped doing things they enjoy. So what we would support them with is a gradually step-by-step approach to getting back into doing the things that they enjoy. Cognitive restructuring. Oh, sorry, can just go back to the previous slide. So this would be where a young person's got kind of stuck into some negative thinking that's out of kilter with the actual situation that's going on. So we'd encourage that person to look at their thoughts, test the evidence, what's the evidence for that thought, and then encourage them to kind of think about it, to reframe it, restructure it in a more positive way. Sorry, so you can move on now. This was just a case study of Alyssa. She came from a small village. She started working with our virtual youth club during lockdown. She built up a rapport with staff. She opened up about her social anxiety, and she then worked with one of our wellbeing practitioners, and then also was then referred on to adult support as she became 18. So we can refer on to talking therapies or something like that. But that really benefited Alyssa, and she took on an incredible fundraising challenge and shaved her hair off for charity. She now volunteers for Young Somerset and is a youth board member. So that's a really nice story of how a young person can come in at one place in Young Somerset and then, you know, work with different people here and really benefit from that. This was just another case study from our mental health team support, which was, this was a young person who was having difficulty sleeping in her own bedroom during lockdown. She was referred into the to an education wellbeing practitioner. Really struggled to start with to engage and discuss her feelings, but was eventually, it was the parent that was worked with because the young person was struggling with that. But the parent said that, you know, she found the practitioner very knowledgeable, engaging, understanding, and empathetic. And that there was some flexibility, so the sessions could be adapted to the family and to the family's needs. And there was a nice successful outcome to that. And this one here was another one. This was a young person who strongly believed, I was talking about cognitive restructuring, who, you know, strongly believed they smelt, and so worked with one of our practitioners, and in the end really understood that this was, you know, this was a thought they were having and not reality. And for them, that made such a huge difference to them. Some of the additional support we can offer, we can do parent workshops. So that would be a one-off workshop around anxiety, low mood, for parents to understand how they can help young people, hints, tips, do's and don'ts. We've started a parents Facebook page. We've got lots of hints on our website. We're starting an early years pilot, so we're getting in there really young. And also at Bold and Brave, the shop I was talking about, we've started running some holiday art groups. So those are just some of the examples of things that we can do. A little bit of feedback. A parent saying they'd like to say what an incredible service this was, about their young person learning strategies to manage their low mood. I can see Steve's there, so I know that I haven't got a lot of time left. But that was a young person saying, I felt like everything I said was taken seriously and I was listened to. And that's the main thing, isn't it? That we are actually there to really listen to young people and to work on what they want to work on, you know, the problems that they want to deal with. So that's just some contact information. So I think that's it from me. Steve, bit of a whistle stop tour, but
fantastic. Thank you so much, Ruth. And yeah, thank you. Thanks for apologies for sort of having to move on at the end there, but
no,
yeah, really valuable information. I say, just to reiterate to people, all of the presentation and the slides will be available to you after today. So yeah, if you kind of want to kind of come back and review any of it, it's all there for you. So thank you so much for that, Ruth. Again, we have got a few questions in the chat here, so if you're able to stay on for a few minutes and just kind of respond to any of those, that'd be really valuable.
Respond.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ruth.
All right.
Take care. See you later.
Bye.
Right then, so moving swiftly on again, we're going to hear now from Hayley, who's going to talk to us about the CAMHS 2+ service, which has been mentioned a couple of times already this morning. So Hayley, if I can just hand straight over to you, if that's all right.
Hi, yeah, good morning, everyone. I do have to apologise. I'm standing in for Claire, who's the clinical lead for CAMHS 2+. So I am working off her presentation. So just bear with me if I'm a little bit slow, but anyway, ultimately, good morning, everyone. I'm Hayley Harrison. So I'm actually the clinical lead for CAMHS SPA, so the single point of access team, and I'm interim ops manager for early intervention services. So I work very closely with Claire. Claire unfortunately couldn't be with us today, so I have stepped in, as I say, with her presentation. So I'm here really just to tell you a little bit about the service and what they can offer, and I'll run through some information, answer any questions that anybody has. So the CAMHS 2+ service was commissioned. We've been running just over a year now. It was commissioned due to a gap really in services for slightly more complex young people that perhaps weren't meeting the CAMHS kind of tier 3 community services, but were probably maybe too complex or too risky, I suppose, for those early intervention services. So some of the things that Ruth was perhaps just talking about earlier. So that we found that there was a pocket of young people that didn't really meet anybody's eligibility criterias, and essentially CAMHS 2+ was commissioned for that purpose. So it's a fairly small team, and essentially Claire Fry, who was due to be here, is the clinical lead, and we have posts for approximately 5 senior mental health practitioners and a support worker. But essentially, as I'm sure there are, it's the same story in a number of services, we do have some gaps in that at the moment, so we aren't fully staffed. So let me just see. Yeah, okay, so we can probably move on to the next slide. So really, the CAMHS 2+ service sit in the early intervention offer, and I get how complex CAMHS may be, not only internally but especially externally to some of our partners and colleagues. But what I would say to you is you don't really need to worry about where they may sit in the CAMHS pathway, so to speak. So we have some of the early intervention within the schools, so the mental health in schools team that work very closely alongside Young Somerset and offer those same kind of services that Ruth was talking about. We then have the 2+ service that kind of bridges that gap for young people, and then we have the more intense kind of community services for the most poorly children, so ones with fairly significant, moderate to severe mental illness, really. So but the single point of access team, which is my kind of day job, I suppose, in where the referrals come in, will work out where a young person needs to be. So you don't need to worry too much about thinking where you would need a young person to be. The SPA team will help direct and triage and get the young person to the right place. So the 2+ offer really was to kind of improve care and support for young people that were kind of falling between the gaps, and they offer kind of interim type solutions, so 6 to 10 sessions really of mental health intervention, and that can be psychoeducation or supporting them with identifying some of the difficulties that they've got. So the team will kind of normally do their own assessment and then work out the most appropriate support really for those young people. But I think the thing to get across there is you don't need to worry about all of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, because the single point of access team will do that for you. Okay, so next slide. Not quite sure. Okay, so I'll probably cover this. There are, as I say, 5 registered, 5 or 6, band 5 or 6. For those of you that know the NHS pay scales, mental health practitioners, so either a mental health practitioner or a senior mental health practitioner, and there's a mental health support worker that can kind of support with some of that intensity if we need to, that kind of community support. But they will all sit under a mental health practitioner. Unfortunately, there are gaps in those posts at the moment, so they're not all filled, but I'm really pleased to say that Claire and the team manage their referrals really well, and there aren't huge waiting lists. There is a little bit of a wait till assessment, but nothing really too much to worry about. So in terms of the criteria and thresholds, then they tend to be perhaps the more risky children, but not where there is significant mental health risk. And what I mean by that is young people that are, I think in some of the discussions earlier, we've all identified that self-harm and suicidal ideation has been on the increase, sadly, over the last few years. But the 2+ service would really, if there is intent or plans around those suicidal thoughts, they would probably sit in a higher threshold team within CAMHS. So the 2+ team will help and support with self-harm and suicidal ideation, but not kind of intent or planning, really. That's probably the easiest way to explain it. So again, there needs to be the mental health element, there needs to be an impairment in functioning. So what are they not doing that they were doing? What's changed really from their normal? And they tend to be, most of the stuff that comes through tends to be around mood, self-regulation type difficulties and anxiety or anxiety-based presentations. Okay, next slide. So the single point of access team, as I say, is the main point of contact. So if you are thinking that a young person is appropriate for 2+, they would still come in the normal way to CAMHS, so through the single point of access, and the senior mental health practitioners in there will direct them to the most appropriate service. If what I would say to you is, if you're unsure, pick up the phone and you'll be able to speak to one of the clinicians there just to talk through your young person. So yeah, that's probably it for me. Whistle stop. Sorry you got me instead of Claire, but no doubt she'll be back and you'll meet her again at some point. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Hayley. And again, we've had a couple of questions in the chat here. Hopefully you can access the chat, but yeah, if you're able to respond to those, I think one is about that kind of link into adult services, which we know is really key, and one is about the senior mental health practitioner as well. So yeah, if you're able to respond to that in the chat, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much. Lovely. Thank you, Hayley. So again, I'm going to move swiftly on because we're running short of time now, and we're going to have a bit of a presentation about the Mosaic project. So Tracy and Jeannie, I'm going to hand over to you if that's okay.
So my name's Tracy Robinson. This is Jeannie we're from Young Somerset. So we're presenting today about a new project called the Mosaic project. It's part of Young Somerset's targeted youth support team. So Mosaic itself evolved from the success of the Jigsaw project, which started about a year ago. It's now, our team was initially called Jigsaw Plus. We've recently changed it to Mosaic, so just to confuse everybody. But this was to make it easier to distinguish between the two teams. Both teams are based at Young Somerset and cover the whole of Somerset. Oh, it's already gone to the next slide.
Next slide.
Oh, okay. So yes, the history of the teams. So the success of Jigsaw was better than expected. So the idea was the youth workers to go in and try and see if they could engage with the young people and reduce readmittance rates for young people turning up at A&E with self-harm or suicide ideation. And we found that the ones that did engage with the Jigsaw project workers, only 8.6% of those were readmitted, and of that figure, 10 of them were kept open by the Jigsaw project to keep going with them. And apparently from those that didn't, there was a figure of about 89% that did. So it was quite a dramatic result. So Mosaic began as an extension of the Jigsaw programme. So we're a team of youth workers that visit young people in their homes or in schools, again with the aim of reducing admissions, to listen to them. So we don't have figures yet because we only started at the end of March. And we're already a team of 5 targeted youth workers, and we've already accepted 26 referrals. We work with higher risk young people to Jigsaw with more complex needs. We're shorter term, more intensive, and we're very much a test and learn project. So we're changing all the time. So the first thing we've done is change the name in response to feedback and to suit the needs of the young people. So we will be changing over time. We're already discussing changes we're going to make. Next slide, please. So we are a co-commissioned multi-provider project. So our partners are Children's Social Care and CAMHS. We work very closely with them. We meet every day, Monday to Friday, for a triage meeting and to discuss any issues with existing referrals. So we're all about placing agenda-free, non-clinical youth workers. Okay, next slide, please. So just again to make it clear what we are doing, our young people are higher risk. We are rapid response, so we aim to make first contact at least within 24 hours of a referral. Sometimes we're able to even see someone before a formal referral has gone in, if we happen to be in the hospital at the time, which occasionally we are. We do work from the CAMHS liaison office. We work evenings, weekends and bank holidays, so our hours align with the CAMHS liaison hours. And yeah, we're shorter term, so what we offer to the young people is 25 hours of our time over 30 days, and that's very flexible according to their needs. Yeah, and they choose what we do, so it's very youth led. Next slide, please. And again, more detail about the referral criteria. So they can be 11 to 19. They don't have to be care leavers, they can be non-care leavers, they can be in care, living at home, in independent or supported living. They will have been assessed by CAMHS, but either they don't meet CAMHS criteria, or they perhaps are open to CAMHS but not engaging, or not engaging well, or with other professionals. Referrals can come from CAMHS or children's social care. They don't need to be in the care system. And one of our referrals has come from the police. And it's really important that consent from the young person is taken before the referral is made. So it can only work if the young person is wanting to engage with us. And next slide, please. So they've all just been in or are in a crisis, or going from crisis to crisis. So perhaps it's a pattern that's happening. So we're thinking that it's going to happen again. And we're trying to put something in place for them. If whatever's been put in place so far isn't working, or they're not accepting it, sometimes they'll come and speak to us. So it's for their benefit, but it's also benefit for the NHS and CAMHS to have somebody else to go to. Some of them may have been in the justice system. So it might be a mental health crisis, it might be behavioural, it might be a criminal thing. Some of them have been in hospital a few times, some of them may even have been under a 136. And next slide, please, and over to Chini.
Thank you. Okay, so what we do, next slide, please. So we do all of our work as more of a youth work approach. So we can do things such as art, cooking. Probably the first thing we'll do is have a conversation with that young person and just find out what their interests are, and let them understand that we aren't sort of going from a clinical perspective, that we are going to be doing stuff that they enjoy. So it might be dog walking, it might just be going for a coffee and a piece of cake. So we're supportive, and we can give advice to them and also to their families. We try and get them involved in education, in some sort of sports or anything that's going to be good for their mental health, really, and just let them communicate how they feel. And we're very, very flexible. And next slide, please. Okay, so we are meeting a need. So obviously we're meeting a need that some young people aren't getting elsewhere. A lot of the other professionals haven't often got enough time to be spending doing all the activities that we are doing with these young people. And a lot of these young people don't want to be going into a room and just chatting or talking and having some sort of therapeutic, conversation. They would rather be out and about doing fun things, and then they open up more so. So how we work. So as I said, it's very bespoke to each young person. I think you said, didn't you, it's 25 hours over a month, but that can be quite flexible. So if we feel that a young person does need a little bit more intensive work, then we can arrange that. So our primary aim is to offer this non-clinical approach, as I've said, and it's a need to be open and honest and trusting and respectful, and it's led by that young person. We work in line with youth work values, so it's talking about their choices, their aspirations, their goals, and not forcing any intervention. So yes, as it says, we provide young people with opportunities. So it's up to them really what they want to do and being their voice, and our youth work principles as are outlined here. So it's youth-led, inclusivity, equality, diversity, respect, quality, safety, wellbeing and positivity. So we call this the 3 E's and a P. So we try and provide them with opportunities to empower their own decisions. So empowerment, education, we educate them as and where we can, but we make sure that they're enjoying it. So enjoyment is one of the main things, and getting them to participate, as a lot of them can be shut away or haven't, you know, been out and been doing things for a long period of time. So it's getting them to participate in activities that they may not have done without us. So so far, as Tracy said, we've only been going a very short time, but so far we have received positive feedback. I've had feedback from the CAMHS liaison team that I've been working with, and they have been saying that they've been seeing far less admissions from young people since we have been working with them, which is fantastic. When they do talk to the young people, they explain the sort of scenarios they could be in with us, and how, oh, it might be a dog walk, and you actually, instead of having some young person in there that's all very serious and down, they start to smile and they beam from ear to ear. This is what I've been told from the team at Musgrove, which is lovely to hear. And the team have also said that it's a different, very different, but much better experience, and it's much more personable. So that's really lovely. We've currently got cases that I personally have been working on a case, and I've seen somebody going into hospital maybe over 3 times a week to actually not being in hospital for the last week at all, possibly even 2 weeks now. So that's really lovely to see. That's a positive coming from us already. So hopefully we can just keep going further and further. I think that's pretty much us for now. If anyone has any questions, if they can stick them into the question, that'd be great. Thank you. We'll try and answer them.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, both of you. Right then, so next up, our final presentation from today is going to be from Sam Best, who's going to talk to us about SWEDA, really kind of building on from what we heard yesterday in relation to the rise in eating disorders nationally. And so we're really looking forward to hearing from SWEDA next. So Sam, if I can hand over to you for our final presentation, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Great, thank you. And next slide. So as Steve said, I'm Sam Best, so I work for Somerset and Wessex Eating Disorder Association. We're based in Shepton Mallet, but we cover the whole of Somerset and Wessex. Next slide, please. So just to give you a little background about SWEDA, we've been working for 30 years. It's our birthday this year. We started in '92 as a support group set up by a group of parents with young adults really with anorexia. That went through to, as any, for the next probably 20 years, the charity sort of grew as demand grew. And in 1999, we started partnership working with the NHS, and we actually set up, or helped to set up, the eating disorders team as you know it now. That culminated in a modernisation award in 2004. And then as the cuts hit everybody after the austerity in 2008, we had to reduce our services until about 2015, when we were awarded a major national lottery grant, which enabled us to relaunch the SWEDA that you may know as today. And in 2020, we were successful in applying for some children in need funding, which meant that we could then offer our services to children and young people. Up until then, we would only work with people from over age 14, really, people with Gillett competency. And then in 2021, so last year, we were the winner of the GSK Impact Awards, which was a major achievement for our team. Thanks, Steve. So kind of where do we fit within the eating disorder pyramid? If you just go through all the animations in this, Steve, that'd be great. So at the top of the clinical eating, the eating disorder triangle pyramid is what we might say people that have got clinical eating disorders. So those who meet diagnostic criteria, those who are really poorly, and so who probably would be requiring support, more clinical interventions. from the NHS team, CAMHS team, community eating disorders team. And where SWEDA fits in, we're kind of in the middle. So as you can see, we work more with people with disordered eating, so we wouldn't necessarily need a diagnostic criteria to be able to work with them. And then we also work with those precursors. So we all know that body dissatisfaction doesn't necessarily lead to somebody having an eating disorder, but we're aware that it is a precursor, and if we can do a lot of that early intervention work, then it stops people travelling up to the top of the pyramid when people come too ill. And we will also work in the top half of the pyramid as well, mainly step down, so people who might be stepping down from NHS services, or people who choose not to use NHS services for whatever reason. Next slide, please, Steve. So what do we do at SWEDA? So we're non-weight-based criteria, so we don't weigh, we don't measure, we don't take BMIs. We work at both ends of the spectrum, so we work with people who are restricting food and also people who are using food to binge mechanism. We don't, as I said, we don't have a diagnostic, we don't work to a diagnostic criteria, and we're therapeutic, we're not a clinical services, so we're not medical. We don't do bloods, we don't do ECGs, but we will refer people on to their GP or to CAMHS or adult eating disorder team to have that done. We offer counselling, therapy, and that depends on the number of sessions as appropriate. We're integrative, tailored approach, so very holistic. We don't just tend to look at the eating disorder, so we're very trauma informed, and we look at the trauma underneath the eating disorder as well. There's no limit to the number of times that people can access our service. People will use our service a bit like a check-in, so they might use our service for a couple of years, for example. It takes a long time for people to recover from an eating disorder if it's really ingrained. And so they might go off and then relapses happen, and then they might come in. But normally when they do come back, they don't need as long as therapy as before. We work with people who both have an eating disorder and also their family and friends. So often we get somebody come along and say, oh, you need to work with my son, he's got an eating disorder. But if the son's not ready, then what we say is that, well, perhaps we can offer you a service. So we do offer counselling to family and friends, and that tends to support the younger person with their eating disorder, because the family's a bit more informed and has a bit more knowledge of how to support their family member. Our age range tends to be between 4 and 80 plus. We don't really have any 4-year-olds on our books, but we do have children from the age of 8 on our books, which is, is very sad to see. And using SWEDA as a choice, so we are pro-recovery. We will only work with people who want to work with us. Next slide, Steve, please. So just to give you a little overview of what services we do offer in Somerset. So support and guidance session is what we call our gateway service. And that's normally the first time that anybody with an eating disorder has been able to just blurt out what's been going on for them. Sometimes they might even come to us and say, I've got an eating disorder, but my mum's told me to come along, or my partner's come along. And it's during that session then they realise that actually there is a problem that they might need to deal with. We're also going to colleges, so we're funded by the lottery to go into colleges across Somerset. And we provide one-to-one support to students in the colleges, which works really well. And we're also funded to provide training and support to tutors at the colleges as well. We work in partnership with Mind, and we've got an eating disorders helpline. So as you know, the Mind line is available 24/7. SWEDA has got 2 slots, and we've chosen those 2 slots because they're the times that the Beat helpline is not open. So that's on a Tuesday evening and a Sunday sort of morning, afternoon. We also provide support calls, so sort of more low-level support to people, and that's 6 weekly support calls, just seeing how people are getting on. So that could be offered to them after counselling or before counselling, which is fine. It all depends on the individual's needs. We have support groups that we run. So we have a monthly face-to-face support group. We have a monthly carers and family support group, and we have a weekly virtual support group, so which is really well attended. Then we've got our therapeutic counselling. It's kind of which SWEDA is renowned for. So we have a team of 20 counsellors, and they provide one-to-one support for clients. Then we've got our DAISY 12, which, whereas the therapeutic counselling looks more, supports people holistically with regards to the trauma underneath and their eating disorder, the DAISY 12 is more specific to eating disorders, behaviours, and the eating disorder in general. And then we've got our recovery support programme, which is more practical support. So when talking therapies is not the right thing for somebody, then we'll offer practical support. So we might support somebody by going out for a coffee, helping them to order a sandwich or cake, or going shopping so they don't spend 4 hours looking at calorie content, trying on new jeans, so shopping that way as well. Thanks, Steve. So we also offer training. So as I said, we've got funding to go into colleges. We can provide support to GPs and schools and other professionals, but we're not funded for that. We don't have the funding to do that, so there is a cost attached. And we do raise awareness raising. So we attend local events, fresh affairs, and obviously we've got our digital marketing as well. Thanks, Steve. So how does it work at SWEDA? So we have, keep going, Steve. So we've got our 4 community support workers who work on our front line. So they're the ones who provide the support and guidance sessions. And then they also go into the colleges, and we have also, they provide some of the Mindline support as well. When we see somebody, they then feed into a weekly clinical assessment. And from the weekly clinical assessment, then it's decided what services that that individual needs. So as I said, that could be the support calls, the counselling, DAISY 12, or the recovery. And then we've got the training and the support groups as well on top of that. So we work very closely with the Somerset Adult Eating Disorders team. Keep going, Steve. So for those of you who are aware of the mental health transformation work, SWEDA has been one of the voluntary sector partners within that. And alongside the eating disorders team introducing Freed, which is a bit like an early intervention programme, our clinicians will work alongside the NHS team as well. So in the past, it's been very difficult for us to be able to refer people into the eating disorders team, but the relationship that we've built over the last couple of years means we can just pick up the phone and say, we've got somebody, you know, somebody's presented at SWEDA, they're too ill for us to work with them, will you take them on? And, you know, 8-9 times out of 10, that person's already known to the eating disorders team, and then our 2 clinical teams will look at how we can better support that person. And it was with the adults eating disorder team that we kind of co-produced the DAISY 12 and the recovery support. And there's a lot of shared training going on as well, as NHS teams have come to our binge eating disorder training, and we've attended the NHS mantra training, which is for anorexia. Thanks, Steve. So that works quite well. Keep going, Steve. And it really is about having a flexible referral process, having the opportunity to talk things through before a formal referral is made. We will attend the clinical meetings. Our clinical lead will attend the clinical meetings, and we'll also be reviewing the service every 3 months. And we're always refining the service pathway to make sure that it's easier for the client. They don't necessarily feel that transition so well. And it's not just about the clinical leads talking, but our support workers are aware of the freed support workers as well. So there's a real relationship across the board at all levels. Thanks, Steve. So looking at children and young people's services then. Thanks, Steve. So as I said, up until January 2020, we were only working up to children over the age of 14, but we created this new service in January 2020, which kind of was difficult because obviously within a couple of months we hit lockdown. But the focus on this was really about motivation to change, working with emotions, working with body image, having that space to talk for people and bringing up relationship concerns. But that did go online very quickly, so it has kind of evolved over the years, or it didn't work out quite as we was expecting. Thanks, Steve. That's the funding is for 3 years, but again, that allows us to do the support and guidance sessions. So we try to mirror the service that we provide to adults. I mean, obviously, all our workers are trained to work with children and young people, but it does mirror the services that we can provide adults. And that's really to help that transition phase as well, so that if we're already working with a young person, if they hit 18, then the same person, the same therapist will continue that work with them along the way. I won't go into all of those again. Thanks, Steve. So how does it work for children and young people? So we've just been commissioned by CAMHS and the community eating disorders team. So again, a bit like the adults, we've got our community support, our children, young people support workers on the front line. These support workers have been in post 2 weeks. They will be providing support and guidance. They might be going into the colleges. They could be going into schools. Carry on, Steve, all the animations have gone in the wrong order. But they will then again bring the clinical assessments to a weekly meeting. And again, that is where we decide what services that we are going to provide, and they're provided by our therapists, which are the dots in pink. Okay, so we still, carry on, Steve, because I think it's on the next slide. So there's community eating disorders and SWEDA pathway. So our clinical lead meets with the KEDS clinical leads on a weekly basis, and again, clients can be referred between both services, so there's step down and step up. The funding currently only covers clients with higher needs at the moment, so this is a bit tricky. But so what we've done is to go out and we've actually just done this. Actually, I think Rose is here. I don't even think I've told you this, Rose, but we've just secured some further funding, external funding, which will enable us to provide the more early intervention services for children and young people. What we were worried about is that people would come to SWEDA as a young person and wouldn't be deemed ill enough. So this is, this enables us, and I think it was Nick Harwood who said earlier, the beauty of voluntary sector organisations, we can go out and we can get external funding and bring it in and provide that extra layer of support for people in Somerset, which is really good. Thanks, Steve. So how do we monitor and evaluate? So we are a member of CORC, which is Children's Outcome Research Consortium, who are they're part of the Anna Freud Institute, and we sit on their eating disorder specific interest group. And we've worked with them quite a lot in the last couple of years to look at how we measure our outcomes, really. And we do that by a variety of means. We've got the eating disorder evaluation questionnaire, which is for adolescents. And we've also got the core young persons, and then we also send out an experience service, a questionnaire to everybody who's received a service from us. And then we've also got our own measure, which is our Wheel of Wellbeing, and that looks at 9 or 12 points within a young person's life. That's done every 6 weeks. So we've got a lot of data, and our data now means that we can start benchmarking ourselves against NHS data as well. And everything's collated on our database, so we've got quite a really good database where we can pull off our reports as we go. So key points. So I think for us, this is all about the trust in relationships, and not just for children, young people, but I think that the whole thing for me around the transformation of mental health services, which we've been a big part of over the last 2.5 years, is about building relationships. with NHS partners, with other voluntary sector partners, and you know, to the extent that we'll have trusted referral systems. So we're not asking people to take on another referral. We'll trust a referral that's done by the NHS, and they replicate that as well. And there's a respect there for the differences in the types of services. So we can't do what the NHS do, and they can't do what we do. It's a real complementary service. And that just attending at those clinical meetings, that really does help to manage the handovers. As I said, referrals go both ways. And crucially, it's about trying to see people as early as possible as eating disorders. We know that eating disorders has got the highest mortality rate of any mental health illness. And the earlier we see somebody, the sooner they will get better. So, and that's about stopping that eating disorder becoming ingrained, because it can come up to 10 years of recovery time if we don't do that. And it's about providing an all-round extra layer really to the statutory services offerings.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sam. And again, I haven't seen any questions pop in the chat, but if you have got any questions for Sam, please do pop them in. But what I have seen, Sam, again, is lots of praise for SWEDA, which is really, really nice to see, and good to see the words getting out there, and it's having a really positive impact for children and young people across Somerset. So thank you so much for your time. Right then, everybody, thank you so much for your time this morning. I do apologise for very slightly overrunning as we did earlier, but hopefully it's been really helpful for you to get all of that information in there. It's been a jam-packed session, but what we wanted to do is bring as much along to you as possible to really tell you about what's going on, some of the really positive work that is going on across Somerset. Just a quick couple of reminders for you. As I mentioned this morning, and my colleagues popped in chat earlier, we really, really do need your feedback, not just from today's session, but we've got a questionnaire that's out there. We will pop the link in the chat again in just a second. If you've got a QR code, you can scan that, and that will take you straight into it. It's a very, very quick survey. Really just want to get your views, your opinions, your kind of experience, to really feed and drive this agenda forward, how we can improve services to supporting children and young people's mental health. So please, I can't stress on that. We really do need your input into that. Just as a quick reminder, so this is our second out of 5 workshops that we've got going on throughout this week. Yesterday, if you weren't able to catch us, we spent the day looking back on the last forum week, the focus on fathers, and some of the learning from the forum legacy group that we've been taking that forward. So if you've not joined us for that one yesterday, it will be available to you online, say hopefully next week, if not the week after, to be able to watch the recording of that one. And the recording from today's session, again, will be available for you. Hopefully you're signed up already, but tomorrow we've got a brilliant workshop taking place by Access 27, who are providing a live theatre production for us, followed by a workshop in relation to the impact of mental health on children and young people across the country. If you've not been able to sign up to that one yet, don't panic. We will have 2 more workshops running for that throughout the year. So please do join us for that one if you can. However, on Thursday, we really want to hear from the voices of children and young people, and we're going to be looking at things like the school surveys into children and young people's mental health, and we need to listen to what children and young people are telling us. So that's very much going to be the focus of Thursday's session. And then Friday is very much about looking forward. Where do we go next with this? And I know a couple of things have popped up in the chat about some of the difficulties, some of the challenges in relation to supporting children and young people's mental health. So that session is very much going to be interactive and working together, looking at some of these issues and how do we kind of start forming those ideas of how we can improve things going forward. So if you have been sitting here today thinking that's great, but there are still these issues, please do join us for that Friday session. We really want to hear from you on that one, and you can sign up to that if you go to the SSCP website on the forum page. We popped the link in before, or onto our training page. You'll be able to access those through that. And just a final reminder before we clock off for the morning, please join us on our social medias. We've always got the latest news, information, and key points for you to be aware of in relation to safeguarding children across Somerset. So do join us on our Facebook page, our Twitter account, and importantly for our newsletter, which goes out on a monthly basis, really giving those key bullet points, those key bits of information to keep yourself up to date with your safeguarding knowledge at all times. So the only thing to leave me with now is just to say thank you so much for your time this morning. Apologies again, we've overrun very slightly, but I hope that's been a useful session for you and really equipped you with some of the knowledge of some of the good practice that is taking place out there. If you've not posted any comments in the chat, please do so. Also, there is the Menti to capture any kind of takeaways from today and the survey, which we'd really appreciate you completing. So thank you very much again. Hopefully, we'll see you in some of the other webinars that are taking place throughout the rest of the week. So thank you very much. Take care, and I hope you have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.